Okay, Aubrey, you want to kick it off with the episode number?
Okay, sure. So, hello everyone. Welcome again to another episode of Global from Asia podcast. Today, we're going to have episode 375.
All right.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
I think there's been some exciting things happening in GFA community. We're kind of trying to merge the program with GFA Kids that you two have been helping a lot with, and there's others behind the scenes helping with. Wendy, of course, our fearless leader, helping that go. And we're going to try to kind of integrate that with the GFA adults or GFA VIP program and club. So I think stay tuned for more. I think we're still just in our early stage of that integration, but we're working. I think kids.globalfromasia.com. We just made a really cool new video. I think that's pretty awesome. And they can check that out there.
Agreed. Very exciting times, Mike. So go ahead and log on to kids.globalfromasia.com and check out our new video there.
Awesome. All right, Aubrey, how are you doing? We have some new people on our intro today.
Yeah, I'm good to be joined with our another two members and excited for this recording. I'm good, by the way.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff happening. And Lori and Leslie, how are you?
We're doing just peachy.
Peachy.
It's very busy. We've been very busy with our tasks on the team. And we just got off the meeting with Miss Wendy, actually, and she had some great ideas to improve our program, our new project. So I and Leslie will be very, very busy in the incoming days.
Great. Yeah. And then after this, our intro today, we'll turn off the recording and have our meeting about integrating with our GFA, adults program, members program and training. I think even Aubrey's talking to a new member applicant in an hour. So it's a lot of exciting things happening. So just so people listening or watching understand that we've been really investing a lot in the GFA Kids program and converting it to a club program and integrating it with the parents or other members in the Global from Asia community. So it's exciting times. All right, so let's talk about this week's show. Or Aubrey, how are you? I think are you guys all doing elections next week? What's this election thing, Aubrey, you're doing? You want to share?
It's a national election here in the Philippines, and it's kind of, frustrating because of many issues. But yeah, we're hoping for the best for our country.
Yeah, I think Monday, right? 9th?
Yeah, May 9.
So you're going to go vote, Lori?
I'm not technically a registered voter yet. So
Interesting. All right. Aubrey will help you get set up. All right. So this week's show, the title is "The Emperor Has No Clothes." Do you know what that means? Anybody want to make a guess, or has he heard that before?
Is it The Emperor's New Groove?
I think there might be some movies. It's an old saying. I don't know where I learned it, but it basically means like famous people. Like the idea of it, I think, is the emperor. The emperor in the olden times is like the king or the leader. Actually, if it's a political discussion, elections, they usually have their public face where they don't have any problems. Everything is good. They're strong and powerful. There's no problems, no issues. But has no clothes means, when they're behind the curtain, behind off the stage, off the TV, they are normal people like us, right? And they have their problems and their issues, and they can't maybe hide that or they get exposed or shared. So this week's interview is Rico. He's another podcaster at Made in China podcast, and he and I do an interview and discussion about that. About a lot of times people idolize him. He goes to a bar and they know him and they think he's special or different or but we're all just normal people. So we talk about some of the vulnerabilities, especially the last couple of years with coronavirus pandemic affecting all of us. So we kind of talk about it and dive in. So it's a fun one. What do you think of that saying?
For me, it all depicts that we're all people we made mistakes, and we're not perfect.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Rico opened up in the end about some things he's been facing, and I shared about my temple experience in November. I don't know if Leslie was here when that happened, but I needed to take a week. I needed to take a week off. This wall is thin here, and the kids are banging against the wall almost literally. You gotta get a break sometimes, especially the last couple of years. So that's the interview. And then after the interview, maybe if anybody here wants to share about some of their, I could share some more about my temple after the interview. So let's go into the show. Okay, thank you everybody for choosing to listen to a Global from Asia podcast. We have with us, we were saying, we do these regular exchanges of interviews where Rico comes on GFA here and go on Made in China podcast there. So
Yeah.
I think we didn't count yet, but we're losing track at least 3, 4, 5 times. So great to have you again, Rico. Source Find Asia and Made in China podcast and friend. So how are you, buddy?
It's always a pleasure, man. Like we were talking about in the last podcast that we did for my show, not knowing how many episodes we've done together, but like I would say it's at least on my side 4+ or 5 now, if you include the last one.
Okay.
So then how many times have been on yours? Is probably like 3, 4,
yeah,
5 as well. So
like
we're going into double figures, I think.
Yeah, man.
And then for me, it's always cool because like as I said yesterday, I was just like, I was listening to your podcast before I started my company, before I moved to China. And I learned a lot from your podcast, and there's a lot of inspiration that I took. So I think it's probably one of the reasons why I started my own podcast as well.
Wow.
So yeah, it's always like, I always try to remind myself, because it can become very normalized, right? Like when you start to work with somebody that you've learned from, or somebody that you maybe view as a little bit of a mentor, it's good to remember that relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that in 48 Laws of Power, they talk about like the student killing the mentor or whatever. Kind of stuff.
What's going on?
But like, I don't believe in that kind of stuff at all.
All right. Yeah, man. I mean, what's that? Karate Kid? Something like that? Are we talking about? Or Splinter and Ninja Turtles? Here we go.
No, I think there's like literally like one of the laws. Well, no, actually, maybe it's the opposite in 48 Laws of Power. Maybe I'm thinking about Sun Tzu, where Sun Tzu talks about like the student becoming the master, and then killing the mentor or the teacher, that kind of stuff. And I know some people that actually like really go on those values, and I'm like, dude, this is not the 1700s.
I know, man. That's the weird one, man. Yeah. Talking about old school stuff, I think we even titled this show "The Emperor Has No Clothes," and then I think the second part that's another old one. That's another. I don't know if it's from any of those books, but I thought of that when we did our. I was on your show and recording yesterday. We recorded, and you made me think of this. Like, everybody's got these social media influencer, KOL, but a lot of times they don't share the real stuff. And I looked up the saying, right? But yeah, go ahead. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a fear, right? There's a fear of retaliation and things like that. Like, even for me, we've always tried to be as honest as possible about what goes on in Asia and China. And there's definitely some things I would say we've said that, people could be offended by. Luckily, most of our audience is abroad. They're foreigners and stuff, so it's not like a big issue. But I know for a lot of the guys that are in China that are influencers and have big followings, where they have both Chinese followers and foreign followers, it's a very tricky situation, right? Because if you say too much, you do too much, you might end up in trouble. Your accounts might get blocked. You might have some visits from the CCP.
I know.
So I mean, they do it to Hong Kongese people. Like I've heard. I remember there was one story about this woman that was running a shop in Hong Kong that was selling books that are banned in China. So a lot of in mainland China, just for people that don't understand the difference, Hong Kong and then mainland. And then a lot of mainlanders would go to Hong Kong and buy from that shop, or she would deliver those books into mainland. And I think one day she just disappeared. Like,
Yeah, I
she
remember
just
that
completely
one.
disappeared. And it was like, okay, what happened to her? Everybody knows, but nobody wants to talk about it. You know, you can fill in
Hmm.
the blanks.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but it's maybe in China, but I think everywhere in the world. But it's true, it's more in the Eastern world. People don't want to show signs of weakness, and
Yep.
then the way I see the emperor has no clothes part also is that it's, maybe I'll read the quote I found on some website. I'll link in the show notes, but it's,
Mhm.
this expression is used to describe a situation in which people are afraid to criticize something or someone because perceived wisdom of the masses is that the thing or person is good or important. Yeah, so like you're
Mhm.
saying, I guess I don't really mean it for about China, but I just, even just a, like, like you're talking about the mentor, like podcast hosts, like, a lot of
Mhm.
times people meet me at an event or something, and they're like, wow, so I've been listening or following your content and to meet you, but then they realize we all are like normal human beings, right, that have
Yeah.
no weaknesses and vulnerabilities.
Yeah, I mean that's a big part of what I've always tried to tell people when I meet them for the first time. Because I was one guy I met in Guangzhou. It was so random. I was at, like, Party Pier in Guangzhou.
Yeah, I go there a few times. Yeah, I forget there's that one
Yeah,
specific bar, but on the end or
the
something, but
I
that
yeah,
two
I know the
levels.
bar you're talking about. I just don't remember the name right now.
Me
It's
neither.
Michael.
Yeah.
But there's another one that was like a Western themed restaurant slash bar, and we were there, and I was with a couple of my friends and just having a night out. And I go to the bar, and then this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" And I was like, I looked at him. It was a expat, and I looked at him and I was like, "Okay, why?" Like, I was like, I mean, that's nice, but like, I don't need you to buy me a drink. And then he's like, is your name Rico? I was like, have I met this guy before? Because I was like, I meet a lot. I used to meet a lot of people, so it's entirely possible that I would have met him maybe like at a conference or something like that. And then I was like, yeah. He's like, dude, you're the reason why I moved to China. And I'm like,
Wow.
what? It's like, so what do you mean? He's like, I've been listening to your podcast for the past 3 years, and I decided to move to China because of your podcast. And I was like, wait, so we've never actually physically met before. He's like, no, I've only like seen you on YouTube and listened to your podcast, and this is the first time that we actually met. And I just wanted to buy you a drink and thank you for inspiring me. And I was like, I was blown away. Like, I was like, okay. But at the same time, I then had a conversation with him just to tell him, like, I'm just a normal person. Like, there's nothing,
Hmm.
particularly special about me. Like, whatever it is that you think you can do, what I've done, like, you can do it. You know,
Exactly.
you can do it. There's nothing, like, again, the emperor has no clothes. Like, I'm not some, deity that's like has some special ability to do business in China,
Yeah, dude. Yeah, no, same things, similar things have happened. And another point, kind of just picking from what we talked about yesterday's, I like the part where we were talking about how now with this COVID and lockdowns, you were saying like
Mm.
somebody said testing a brick house versus straw houses. I think what you had
Yeah,
said,
yeah, yeah. I
right?
was talking about the Chris Rock analogy that he's been using in some of his interviews about COVID, where he was talking about the Three Little Pigs, where it's like,
Yeah.
what when during lockdown you learn what kind of house you've built, right? So either it's a straw house or a wood house or a brick house, and we all know the story about the Alhafa and Alpafa and blow your house down.
Yeah.
So COVID is the big bad wolf, and you are in your house, and it's not just about financial situations. Like, if you're in a straw house, easily blown down, meaning from a financial standpoint, like, can you not work for 2 to 3 months and be okay? Can you not work for if you're in a wood house, can you not work for like 3 to 6 months to a year and be okay? If you're in a brick house, can you go 3 years, 4 years without working and still be okay? That's the financial standpoint. But it's not just that, it's also about like your relationship with your friends and family and all that stuff. Now you're at home every day with your wife and kids, or your girlfriend and kids, or just girlfriend. And this is not like, usually you'd be leaving the house going to office, or your significant other would be leaving the house going to office, kids would be going to school. So you don't actually spend that much time on a daily basis together. Like, maybe the weekends you do, but like, morning, everybody's gone. They come back in the evening. You have dinner together, and then you hang out a little bit, and then people go to bed. So now, if you're every day together, only hanging out with these people,
Yeah,
you
dude.
really test your you really test your relationships, right? And there's a
Tell
lot
me
of people that have broken up during COVID. There's a lot of people that have gotten divorced during COVID because they realized, like, you know what, I don't really like you. And some people are like, I don't really like my kids either. You know, like, like so
Dude,
yeah, so that was the analogy that he was talking about.
I hear you, man. I mean, it's true. I can't imagine anybody listening doesn't relate to that thought, but I've been tested a lot. Yeah, I took a week at Temple. I don't know if we talked about that,
Yeah,
but
you told me you were going, but you didn't tell me after when you came back, like what the experience was like.
I think yeah, I'll talk about that. But before I get into that, I mean, one, it was like I was totally really overworked. I love work. I think we're both hustlers, and there was a few different things in work, but it wasn't just work. It was also living with my kids every day. We just moved to another apartment. We moved, and this one's actually a little bit smaller. Man, we're in this like kind of smaller 2 bedroom, and so it's like tighter and louder. The walls
Yeah.
are thinner, and man, that was honestly, I don't know, that was part of the reason I had just moved in, and it was like that was around November, so I guess it was October I moved here, and part of it was just the loud noise and the kids bouncing off the walls. They were at home, right? I gotta get out of here, man. Like, seriously. Actually, Wendy, my wife, is the one that suggested it, and it definitely helped. So I recommend it. Honestly, I almost feel like I'm at a part where I maybe need it again. I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe once a year might be
Did you do
a goal.
did you do Vipassana?
So the story was Wendy, my wife, is practiced Buddhism, so she called up some Buddhist temples and convinced them to let this foreigner go there to be a volunteer. And we go there, 2 days notice or whatever. I go there, and like, I didn't take anything. I didn't even take my laptop. I think I took my Chinese phone. I have multiple phones. Took just a Chinese WeChat phone because you have to scan QRs everywhere. But I barely brought anything. It was just like a knapsack, like not even like proper backpack, like kind of like a knapsack, drawstring bag, and a couple sets of clothes, one flip flops, one sneakers or something. We go up to this mountain. It was a couple of hours. It was in the east of Shenzhen. I'm forgetting the name, but we go there. Going up those stairs after you take a bus to to the temple, and then you walk up like massive, like 3-4 flights of stairs or whatever, big ones, and then go into the second floor of the admin office, and they're like, Lawai. Like, like, what's this Lawai guy doing here or whatever? And then Wendy's like talking to them, and there's like some misunderstanding about me able to go there or not. And
you didn't tell me that you were bringing a Lawai, huh?
yeah, she's like, I unfortunately my Chinese is still not so good. I can get by, but I didn't really understand exactly. But they're just like, no, it's not really for him. And I'm not gonna. One was my Chinese language wasn't good enough. They said to communicate with me unless she stayed there, but she couldn't. And then the second was, I'm not gonna be I mean, I respect Buddhism. I respect all religions, but I'm not going to say I'm a Buddhist, and I'm not going to like kind of like bow to a Buddhist statue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I have my limits.
I like Buddhism as well. Actually, I want to do like a retreat where I disappear for like 2 months and go and be a monk.
Yeah, dude.
I want to do that.
It was wild. So the embarrassing part was we got rejected after like, I don't know, 15-20 minutes of bargaining, and because she I don't know if she don't honestly, I don't know where some of the money we goes, and I think she contributes. She does practice Buddhism, and I don't know, but she was a little bit upset. But finally, we lost face or whatever.
So you think she was donating towards that temple and stuff like that? And...
she's pretty active. All I can say is there's quite a bit of stuff she does. She even goes to some of these retreats and stuff. Anyway, we finally gave up and left, and I'm like, it doesn't matter if I stay in the temple, just book me a hotel near the temple. There's these little mountain hotels, really local, man. I'm talking about super local, like, whole toilet, like built.
Oh, geez.
The,
Squat toilet.
Yeah, a squat toilet with the bed built into the wall because it's not really a bed. It's like, and then like a small sliding window, to the street. And
Did I tell you that I've only used a squat toilet twice in my 5 years in China?
Wow, man. No, I
Like
cheat a little bit. I kind of use my hand on the wall, kinda. I'm not.
So the first time I didn't have my technique perfect. I'll spare you the gory details.
I
But
dropped the
second
soap
time,
in there. It's the shower right above it, I don't know.
oh, Jesus Christ.
So I thought I had a bar of soap because I brought a bar of soap with me. Luckily, I mean they gave you those little like packets of, but basically, man, I was super local, man. And it was wild. It was 1 week, and I just stayed at this like mountain hotel, and like a block away from the temple. But I had to power on my phone only to scan the stupid QR. They still make me do the QR. Like come on.
Even at the temple, or just at the
even
hotel?
enter the temple, man. Like they're super strict here everywhere.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm like, I got my haircut in a park with some barber that was like under
In
the
a-
tree.
In a park. Oh, so just like straight scissors, or did you actually have like clippers? I mean, where would you?
No
even-
electric. He was doing
Yeah, I was
scissors,
like, where would you
and
even
then
plug in? Yeah.
whew, it was scary. They were laughing because I was definitely the only foreigner around for a long time. And they were getting to know me in the hood because I was just walking around. But I think on a day 3 or 4, I was like, I feel like I'm getting a haircut, and because I kept seeing that guy at the tree in the park. So I go up to him, and he's got his, he's like this old Chinese guy that cuts hair and just chills and talks to like other old random dudes sitting around him,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so he sees me walking
know
up
the
to
type.
the tree. You know what I'm talking about, right? So he
Yeah.
sees me walking up to the tree, and they're like, why or why going? What the hell? This guy's seriously gonna get a haircut with me? I sit down, and they got the mirror like pegged to the tree trunk, and I'm sitting on the plastic chair, like on a stool, and like cut me with
Oh, wow.
scissors. And the craziest, so the haircut was normal, but then he's gua. I remember gua. It basically means shave.
Yeah.
He shaved me with like one of those metal, like a metal knife, just like a straight edge.
It's razor.
Yeah,
Straight-
razor.
Straight edge razor. Yeah.
That was scary. I mean, it kind of, even cut me a little bit, but he was even
Yeah,
scared.
I probably would even trust. I'm growing out my beard. If I'm if I'm in that situation,
I
I'm
get
gonna
it.
come back looking scruffy.
But it was wild. Like I'm saying, like the first day, I had no watch. I didn't, the phone, I would only have to power on. I try not to even look at WeChat. I try not to, I just had to, of course you have to open WeChat to scan a QR, but I would try my best to just cover the screen and open it, hit the plus to scan, and then close and turn off. There was a lot of hiking. I hiked, I went. So a couple of highlights. One was the first few days was really wild because I would sleep. I just went to sleep when I was tired, and I would just wake up when I wake up because I had no alarm, no clock. I didn't know what time it was, and I don't know how much I slept for the first couple of days, but I definitely think I slept a lot. I mean, I don't know, but it would get dark. All I would do is hike and eat. So, and that was really weird. So then I don't drink anymore, but I would buy a Qingdao at the first couple of nights. Sometimes I couldn't sleep because I didn't know what time it was, and I was like still like kind of like, what's that, like wired, right? Like I was like, but I wasn't like Vipassana, but I didn't really talk to anybody, but I would just basically walk, didn't know what time it was, sleep. It was a lot of hiking in the mountains, the temple, but I didn't really meditate.
Was it uncomfortable the first couple of days, but then did you start to like get into it?
Yeah, like as I did it, I started caring. Like sometimes I would eat dinner. I felt like hungry. It would be like 4 p.m. and I would eat dinner, and I was like, wow, sometimes I kind of see a clock, somewhere, so I realized what time it was. But I remember one time I was just like, I'm gonna just drink a Qingdao, and I just bought a Qingdao for like 3 or 4 RMB, and I sat at the bus station on rush hour in my like Buddhist monk stuff. Most people weren't monks, right? Like it's still like kind of a city. So there's mostly normal people and construction workers and stuff. And they're just like seeing me sitting at a bus bench.
As a monk with a beer.
Yeah, I don't think monks can drink, can't they?
No, I'm just like the image, the picture.
you look at things differently because they're all rushing around trying to get on a bus, rushing here, rushing there, and you're just sitting there with a beer looking, and there's nothing to
100%.
do, nothing to look at, right? You're just like looking at people and they're just like rushing around. Yeah, I remember that.
100%, man. Like, I mean, this doesn't compare in the same level, but like one of the highlights of my last year, like 2021, was during the national holiday. There was like a 10-day stretch, right? I decided to go to Puerto Galera, which is like
Yeah.
from Manila is like 3 hours away. You can take a car for 2 hours and take a boat to the island. And my girlfriend asked me one request. She was just like, "Can you just like not work?" You know what I mean? Like she wanted to organize stuff and everything. And she's like, because I'm usually the one who's like arranging everything. So I'm like on my phone and all this stuff. So she's like, "I will arrange. Just get off your phone and like, you know, finish whatever you need to do for work and then get off your phone." So I did that. And then the first, I'll say, day was a little bit strange. You know, 1 or 2 days I was kind of still like, well, I need to check my Slack. I need to check my emails.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then after like 2 days, I was all in, you know, like, and I was super relaxed, like super chilled for the next 5, 6, 7 days that we were on that trip. The only thing that changed is, of course, she started to freak out about the organizational stuff. So I had to then jump back into, you know, my normal mode and start to organize like like hotels and things like that. Because I'm just better at it. Like I've done it so much that it's I'm used to doing it. It doesn't add stress to me. It just takes time, right?
Got it.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I can totally relate to that because then when I came back to Manila, after being on the island for that period of time, and then we ended up going back to the island. I was on the island for 2 months, but when I came back to Manila, it was just like, you know, you come and you just like you're seeing a bunch of traffic and pollution, and you're watching people run around, and you're just like, I don't know if I like this. I don't know if this is good. I don't know. Maybe it's we should have a bit different way of life. You know?
Yeah, dude, it's true. I mean, the other quote, I think it's a Will Smith quote, which now what's you're talking about Chris Rock, I'm talking about Will Smith, but
Yeah, of course.
yeah, but Will Smith, I think, is his quote that says, "People work really hard to buy things that they don't need or want to impress people they don't like." Something like this. Like, you know that quote, right?
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah,
I think
because I
it
mean,
is.
Will Smith is like an idol of mine. So the fact that he slapped Chris Rock,
Yeah, how do you feel about that?
I mean, it's a complicated situation. I think that he's probably going through some stuff in his personal life because it was out of character. You know, I still think that he's like a generally like a nice guy and everything. So I don't think that his persona that he puts out into the world is fake. I think that he just was going through something and he snapped.
Yeah.
And I don't even think it was about Chris Rock necessarily. I think it was about like, you know, when sometimes when you become like the nice guy in public, or even public, just like within your friendship circle or whatever, people can start to take advantage of you. You know what I mean? Or they can start to think that they can get away with things because, oh, he's the nice guy, he's not gonna do anything, you know. So they can say things about you and things like that or whatever. So I just think that he just was like, okay, I'm done. Like I want to show people I'm nice, but like if you push me to a certain
I got my
stage,
limits. Yeah.
And I mean, obviously I don't condone violence. Like I think he could have handled it differently.
Yeah.
But I understand where he was coming from. I feel bad for Chris Rock because to get slapped in front of hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah, I watched
fucking,
that like in slow motion even a couple times.
Oh, Jesus Christ. And then I what happened was it's interesting that you brought it up because my initial reaction was I was thinking about Will Smith because, you know, Will Smith, I'd like, if you to weigh up the scales, like Will Smith is somebody that I care about more than Chris Rock, right? But I then, like in the last week or so, I started listening to some podcasts. That's how I ended up coming up with this thing about Brick House and Three Little Pig stuff.
Okay.
I was listening to Chris Rock's podcast that he's done in the last few years, and he's been doing therapy, and he's been opening up about like being bullied in school and all these things. And he's had a lot of fucked up shit happen to him. So I felt bad for him after this because he was saying as well, like basically, you know, he's always been like this skinny, small dude, and how he got out of certain situations was humor. And that's probably why he became a comedian. And so, like, I think for him in that moment, it's like he got bullied in front of the world. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, like, so I feel bad for him as well. Like, I've, nothing but respect for him, and how he handled it was fucking classy, man. Like, I mean, I don't know if I would have handled it like that.
I know he just took it and just kept going. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think Will Smith, I would have expected him, in the way I know Will Smith, I would have expected him and his wife to just get up and leave, right? You don't go up and hit him, but if you just stood up in the middle, because they were kind of front, and they just walked out. I think that would have been
maybe went to speak to him backstage and said, like, whatever, the same thing. He said, keep my wife's name out your,
or even yell, but maybe even yell but
Yeah.
leave, right? Go on stage and it's anyways.
I'm sure he regrets it. Anyways, there's a tangent.
Yeah. So. But yeah, I guess we're going back to the Emperor, no, even that, I mean, that maybe that's COVID, like you said, maybe he's going through something different. Who knows? I mean, we're all going through extreme.
But that's another example of the Emperor wears no clothes, right? That's another example of that, right? It's like we have Will Smith on a pedestal. We're thinking about this guy like it's Will Smith, you know what I mean? And then you see him do something that's very, very human, which is lose his mind in front of the world. And then you realize, like, he's just another dude. He's just another regular dude.
Exactly.
Yes, he has accomplished some big things in his life, but at the end of the day, he's still human.
Yeah. All right. Well, coming back to, our, let's think back to our listeners, these entrepreneur, business owners, traders, people kind of like us, I mean, I know a lot of people are going through a huge stress. I've been saying this on some other episodes, but separation, luckily, I mean, I'm really, even though I'm a little bit stressing, those are screaming kids on the other side of the wall. I mean, I think obviously I feel blessed. I'm back with them. There were some close calls where I barely got back into China and other situations, but there's a lot of people separated. There's been, I can't say very directly, but there's been indirectly suicides of friends, that have, I guess, felt like it got so bad financially or business or friends. And like you said, divorces, split ups, and it really goes back down to what matters, right? Health, hopefully doing some kind of work or career that you enjoy doing, not just doing it, for the financial gains. And I hope that's the main lesson that I hope a lot of people have taken away in this traumatic couple of years, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, do you have a brick house or a straw or wood house? And like, that's just not, it's not just financial, right? It's about your psychological health, your personal, physical health, your personal relationships, your work and everything. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm doing therapy right now. I'm doing personal therapy right now.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. So like, I started doing it, like a month and a half ago. I've done therapy before. I did it when I was in college because it was the time period when I went through, I wasn't sure if I wanted to continue with my business degree or switch to psychology. And I was like feeling guilty because my parents already spent so much money on my school fees and all that stuff. So, and then I decided to continue with business, but like, I was trying to work through those thoughts and everything. So I even did like some psychological evaluations and all that stuff that time period. So I mean, for me, therapy has never been a stigma. Like, it's never been, as maybe I wouldn't talk about it publicly or whatever, but it's never been like something where I'm embarrassed or anything like that. But yeah, like right now, the reason why I started doing it was partly because of this COVID stuff, partly because I just turned 30, right? I turned 30 a month ago. And
congrats, man.
And I'm also the youngest in my family, and yet I have a lot of responsibility within my family. Like, when I say my family, I mean youngest kid, but I'm treated sometimes like I'm the oldest in a lot of different ways. So I have like these responsibilities with my family. Then I have responsibilities in my personal life, and then I have responsibilities at work as the CEO of the company. So sometimes it can be a lot of pressure, man. You know what I mean? A lot of pressure, and I start to feel that. And especially in a situation right now where I'm not getting to do a lot of the things that I used to do to alleviate pressure, which would be, during the lockdowns is whatever. It's like I wasn't able to go and do Muay Thai. I wasn't able to travel. I wasn't able, all these things that would help me deal with my day-to-day stresses. It's a lot. So I was like, I'm trying to, pierce through these things. And some of the realizations I've had in therapy is that as much as before COVID and before I took on some of these responsibilities, I was traveling a lot, enjoying my life, kind of like thinking about myself more than others. During this time period, during COVID, I kind of transitioned into thinking about others more than I think about myself, and not taking enough time for myself. And then that pressure, allowing that pressure to weigh on me. So that's one of the things I learned about in my therapy sessions, was like, I actually have to make sure that I'm taking care of make sure I'm giving myself my own space and time. Even though I have all these responsibilities, I still have to give myself my own space and time. It's like I forgot that I have to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I hear you, dude.
Yeah, so
it's important for sure.
We
both are workaholics. I think a lot of people, listening to these, either of our podcasts are, high achievers, super workaholics. So learning, doing, but yeah, it's true. It's like, it's definitely needed. We have to schedule it, because we can always work, there's always going to be work. I think my part, actually, just the other day, somebody on my team was trying to remind me. They know I work like nonstop, so they're just like, take a break. It's even a holiday. We're recording these on a holiday, at least a Chinese holiday, and
I'm on the holiday. I've been working the past 2 days.
I know, right? It's like a holiday, but I do think we gotta try to be nicer to ourselves, right? Like, we are usually the hardest on ourselves. Probably most listeners.
Yeah, I definitely try. Like, I definitely, I think yesterday when we were doing our pod, I talked about the reason why I got into entrepreneurship is for freedom, right? So like, I definitely have these moments where I just say, screw it. I'm like, I'm going to go somewhere and take some time off for a couple of days, even if it's during the week or something, or I'll go work remotely, so.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so
I think we should maybe start to wrap up a little bit. This has been cool. I think it's, I'm always trying to think of the listeners. I think the main point that we thought of this topic is just to make sure people remember that, we all have rough times, even the great Rico podcast host and Mike podcast host. We are emperors without our clothes sometimes, like you just kind of shared that you have some therapy. Honestly, I've had friends really, not saying it in a bad way, but telling me I need it. Maybe the temple was honestly, I think temple is kind of like a therapy.
I think we all have some form of therapy that we do, but actually psychotherapy, sitting down with a psychologist or therapist and just psychoanalyzing yourself, I think it's important for everybody.
Yeah,
I think it doesn't matter if you're going through like a really difficult patch in your life, or you're just kind of good and coasting, whatever. Like, I think it's just good to explore that side of yourself, because there's things that I learned about myself that I suppressed feelings or memories from 10 years ago, 15 years ago, and exploring that side of, I was like really surprised. I was like, I don't even remember. How did I remember this? Well, this feeling that I'm having is felt this in 15 years, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, before we wrap up, it's always a pleasure to have you back on. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. What, Made in China podcast, sourcefindasia.com, right? Drop some links or ways.
sfadigitalsummit.com. And we are launching a Discord soon as well.
Okay.
So that will be linked up eventually. But yeah, that will be on our services page, sfa.com, sourcefindasia.com/our-services. And then the Discord link should be at the bottom of that page.
Okay, I'm just typing
and
it
there'll
up.
Be exclusive content on the Discord.
Okay, great. All right. Well, thanks as always, Rico. I'm glad we made this happen, and it's always a pleasure to have you on a show and being on your show. So thanks.
All right, cheers, man. It went by so quickly.
I know. I can't.
Feel like
We have fun, man. And I'm
feel,
sure listeners got a lot out of this. Just we gotta be nicer to
feel,
ourselves, is how I think I see it. But
feel like we could have been talking for another hour.
I know, right? That's why I'm like, man, I'm losing track of time here. It's great.
All right, man. Cheers.
All right. So that was the interview with Rico. Thank you, Rico. I think he's been on 4 or 5 times on this show, actually. And I've been on his show that many times too. So what do you ladies think of, some of the points, like maybe we could talk about the Chris Rock getting slapped. Do you have an opinion or thought of that? With Will Smith, a lot of people look up to Will Smith, right? Like he does seem like he's a positive role model. Even Rico says he was like a role model to him, and it was kind of shocking to see that happen. Do you have any insights or thoughts?
Well, when they say too much of anything is bad,
Too much of anything is bad.
right? So too much of a joke, whether you know it or not. And then they say ignorance of the law excuses no one,
Mm,
right? You don't know it, but it's not really a good reason to use it.
sure.
Because what he said was he didn't know that Will Smith's wife doesn't or is actually suffering from a disease.
Mm. Oh, he said he
So
didn't
she
know
made it,
that. Oh, I didn't know
he
that.
said he didn't know that. So he made fun of it because he just thought that she just wants to shave her head off.
Mm, yeah. I guess that makes it a little bit, if it's true, then that does make it a little bit different. Because yeah, if you notice somebody has a disease and you make fun of it, especially something that's serious, it's but I said it in an interview with Rico, and I think if it was me, I don't know, maybe Wendy would have gone up and slapped him, probably not me. But we might have, I would have gotten up and walked out. Maybe, that's I think what I would have done. I would have maybe just, I wouldn't have maybe try not to say anything, but I would have tried to just walk out, and maybe of course be seen as walking out, that's maybe how of course it's hard to know how you react, you know, but does anybody here want to share some of their vulnerabilities? Like Rico says he's going to therapy now for the last month. I didn't expect him to share that. I kind of set him up my Temple week unplugged to decompress. I don't know, luckily I don't know, I hope there's no, we're saying how like in there's been some suicides because of COVID, or there's been divorces and family disruptions. I hope nothing happened for anyone here, but I don't know. I just put that open if anybody wants to add some points to our closing remarks of this show.
The COVID has indeed taken a toll, and is still taking a toll on everybody right now. I'm not really sure if the new variant is in our city, because
Oh.
there have been reports that a New Zealander or a person from New Zealand came on a business trip here a few weeks ago, and it was said that he had the new virus. But it's a very trying time this week because, yes, national elections is on Monday, and I guess we cannot afford to, what you call this, to have the virus spread so early. So we do not know any reports if there have been cases right now, but the government is keeping it so low, so it's kind of stressful.
Yeah.
We're in the dark when it comes to um contact tracing, confirmed cases, because of the election on Monday.
Got it. Yeah, I think in China a lot of this pressure has happened because it's not really elections, but there is a big government meeting in October every 4 year, I believe. I don't want to be wrong, but I think it's 4 years. They have all the big shots in the government meet and talk, and that's where they decide who will be the emperor for the next 4 years or whatever. So that it's not elections in China, as you know, but that's when they decide. So some people think this whole pressure, all this lockdowns and stress is because of the government leadership meeting in October, because there are people that maybe want to change. There are people on the inside trying maybe that have different opinions of things, as you can imagine, so it's dangerous to get political. I don't want to disappear. So here, yeah, knock on.
Especially when you are a foreigner there. In a
I know. I was going to
communist
say, Lori, you're like,
country.
oh, you're just saying, oh, some dirty New Zealander came and brought the virus. You know, that's how it is in China. Is we're like these dirty foreigners that brought the virus here. I don't want to get into it, but where did it seem to start? I mean, I know there's some people that say it didn't start in China, but I mean, as far as I can tell, it looks like it started in China. I know the Chinese people said it started in Italy. I don't want to get political here, but somehow it's amazing that the virus came from foreigners in China. It's kind of unbelievable, but that's how it is here. So we're like these dirty foreigners that bring viruses here.
We did not know that people on the outside think that
Even though
it started in China.
I've been here, I haven't even left during, well, I came in March, but I didn't even leave. And they think maybe dangerous. I'm some foreigner that came in with the variant. I don't like, it's crazy, right?
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.